Here we go. Good to be back.
Yeah.
Law 36 on this Monday, Law 36 from the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, which is disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. By acknowledging a petty problem, you give it existence and credibility. The more attention you pay the enemy, the stronger you make him. And a small mistake is often made worse and more visible when you try to fix it. It is sometimes best to leave things alone. If there is something you want but cannot have, show contempt for it. The less interest you reveal, the more superior you seem.
Wow.
This is definitely in this book because it's a power move. And, we actually recently came across an instance where both you and I decided, well, actually two instances, where you and I were going to address something and we decided to leave it alone. But
Oh, yeah.
had we maybe not gone through our experiences and the studies that we've done with the laws, maybe we would have just, whether emotionally or quickly, addressed, because it was something that was done that was incorrect, let's say, in my eyes, and I think also in yours. Or it could have been handled better. So the idea was address that. But maybe it's not always. Maybe sometimes it's better to just leave things alone.
This is good. I'm not quite sure exactly what's on your mind, but by hearing you talk, I actually thought about 4 things
Oh, wow.
that have recently happened to us, recently within the last 3 weeks or so,
Okay.
that we have chosen not to address. One of them in particular in a very direct manner. It was a big mistake that somebody made. And, when you have a team like we do in our real estate business, we're involved with people with title, with insurance, escrow, inspection companies, termite companies,
Realtors.
It's a conjunction of actions one after the other, and one action elicits a reaction, right? So it's a mixture of many people from all walks of life coming together to try to put the deal together, because some people out there will say, what's easy? There's nothing easier than a real estate deal, and they can be smooth, okay? But a lot of times there's so many disclosures, so many things that
But
pop
you're
up
saying
unexpectedly.
when something goes wrong in these 4 instances, we purposely chose not to address.
Correct.
And how does that pertain to this law? Well, if something goes wrong, or if, let's say, in the example that Robert Greene's giving of an enemy where you are above this person's trying to gain more power, by you addressing maybe something that was done wrong, you're even giving them existence.
Right. By addressing let's say a petty item, one of these things was not petty, okay? But we chose not to. Addressing it would have made that that team member look really, really bad, and we were able to resolve the situation without any major conflict or anybody getting hurt. It was caught in time enough where, but it was noted, this cannot happen again. And in the compliance of the law, in the viewing of the law, I found this time around a very interesting comment, which they said, look, you don't need to address everything, but be aware that it happened, because it could be brewing And depending on how you treat the enemy, because he's talking about the enemy, that enemy potentially can grow. So don't just dismiss it altogether. Keep it in the back burner. Realize that you're doing disdain, disdain and ignoring the things you cannot have. Treat them with contempt, right? But keep an eye on it. It's most likely going to die out.
Yes, because it could turn into something.
It can.
And especially, like, I'm thinking in business, a competitor. A competitor's trying something different. They're getting more exposure. If somebody comes and asks you about, oh, what do you think of that competitor? Who's that? Right? You're not even giving them, acknowledging that they exist. But if you acknowledge them or maybe start to bash them, then it's like, oh, why are you doing that? You're making them seem, you look petty.
Right.
Because you're above them. You're doing a lot more business than them.
Right. And that's the thing that, one of the things that the law spoke about was Kennedy, with the invasion of Cuba. He ended up...
the Bay of Pigs invasion.
The Bay of Pigs invasion. He ended up putting so much attention on that issue, okay, that he inadvertently turned Fidel Castro into an international hero. Because he was the little guy in little tiny island of Cuba. Essentially, they stumped the United States.
Yeah.
They weren't willing to, and so, it made him look like, and it gave him, on the world stage, a lot more doors that he could knock on and open for political purposes. So
Fidel Castro. At least that was the perception. Because later on you find out a little bit more about the situation. And Kennedy didn't even want to get involved from the beginning and all that. But it made it look like it was a failed attack from the U.S. We failed as the U.S. and Cuba won. Communism won.
Right.
Fidel Castro won. So anyways, you're right. The perception was, oh, this guy, there's something about him.
Yeah. He took the little guy, he took on the big, huge behemoth of the United States, and they backed off.
Now, there's a story that you can say that the United States was trying to use this law because there's a story that Fidel Castro came to the United States, to New York, and nobody paid him any attention.
Right. He spoke at the United Nations. Yeah. Nobody gave him the time of day. Nixon didn't want to see him. So they hurt his ego. And unfortunately, this was a very smart man. And he went back. It's, the other law that says, be careful who you make an enemy of.
Yeah.
They were talking about Hitler.
They thought maybe he'd just go away somehow.
Brush him off. And he became the biggest thorn in their,
Yeah, well, he said, if you're not going to talk to me, I'll talk to
the Russians.
The Russians.
Yeah.
So that was one story, very interesting.
It is, you can go through history and come up with all kinds of stuff that...
I think this pertains a lot to, like, showing interest, to, like, when you're courting somebody, you're dating, or you're getting to know somebody, and, you want to let that person know that you're interested, but if you show that you're head over heels for somebody, like, you've completely fallen for that person, then that's not attractive to the other person.
To the other party.
To the other party, whether it's the woman who does that or it's the man.
Right.
Because I don't know if maybe it's just in our human nature that you want some sort of challenge in life, or, you want to, I'm not sure where that comes from, but what Robert Greene's saying here is that by ignoring, you can make that person, let's say, be more interested in you.
I agree.
You create, like, this idea that you're superior somehow.
Yeah. He says, the more attention you pay to the enemy, the stronger you make him.
Yeah.
So if it's a little guy, maybe it's not even worth your while.
Yeah.
Okay?
I remember in business, just you brought that up, and I remember I was getting started, but I was very aggressive, right, in the financial services. And one guy who already had been in the business like 20 plus years, seen on like very, very successful and this and that, came to me and asked me how I was getting business. And it, to me, brought him down like, because I always thought this person was like super high performer, which they were. But the reality is in sales is you're as good as your last sale. And if you, over time, you lost your mojo or whatever it was you had, and he came and was asking a rookie, oh, how are you putting up those numbers with that office? I tried with that office or whatever, and I wasn't able to, or whatever the case. And then, so I thought that was very interesting because it just, I was, let's say, the enemy, the competitor. Right, because that's what Robert Greene's talking about. The enemy could be seen as the competitor. And he blew me up my ego a little bit. He made me feel like, oh, I'm doing something right because you're asking me for advice.
Very interesting.
So you do have to be careful with that. Robert Greene talks about King Henry VIII.
Right.
And the story goes that King Henry VIII wanted to marry his brother's widow.
Correct.
And they had been married, for a very short amount of time, months, right? Before he passed away, the brother.
Right.
And then King Henry VIII said her name was Catherine, and she was the daughter of Isabella and Ferdinand from Spain. It was a very powerful union. So he goes and he asks the Pope, correct?
Yes.
And the Pope tells him, well, I'm not sure this and that. But he comes up with the idea that it's okay to marry her because the marriage, I guess,
was not consummated.
So then he's able to marry her, is not able to have a son.
Correct.
I don't know. Did he have daughters?
I don't think so. She wasn't able to bear him a child.
Is that what it was? Because I know for sure it wasn't a son, but I'm not sure if it...
Right, I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, wasn't able to bear a son, which he wanted an heir.
I think she wasn't able to bear him children. Okay? Now, a son is what he was looking for so that he could, pass the kingdom down.
Let me look it up.
But the point is that he broke away from the church, created his own, right? And then he ended up marrying the person that he wanted to, and he didn't pay any attention to her. And unfortunately, she passed. But she was very, very bitter because King Henry VIII didn't pay any attention to her. He totally ignored her. And that's what the law is talking about. You ignore something and it eventually goes away.
So I did want to, because I thought she had. So
She did?
This is this source here, hrp.org.uk. Catherine produced 6 children,
Ooh.
but only a daughter, the future Mary I, survived. As the years went by, Henry became desperate for a male heir, finally attempting to divorce his queen for a younger woman. So that's what ended up happening.
Okay.
Like you're saying, he wanted the son, and so he went to the Pope, and the Pope wasn't willing to
annul the marriage.
Mm-hmm. So then he said, all right, well, that's fine. I'm going to marry this younger lady anyways, which her name was Anne Boleyn.
Anne Boleyn.
And so he ended up marrying her and completely ignoring the Pope Clement, and completely ignoring Catherine, his wife. He sent his wife, Catherine, ex-wife, I guess, out to somewhere else. She wasn't living in the castle anymore, all that stuff.
Let me,
But the point is that he completely ignored.
yes,
That's where the law comes in. And they had no power over him.
exactly.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not involved in a discourse, in a talking, or in a, so you cut off all their strength. It's very interesting. Ignoring is the best weapon sometimes. Now, something that you mentioned about the experience you went through, okay? You took it as if the guy was coming to you and you said that he dropped on your standard list,
Yeah.
right? There are times in our lives when you've been in business, let's say as long as I have, where you need to recreate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to go to a young cup or a young pup,
Yeah.
somebody that's putting up big numbers, and maybe they're doing something different, and you're willing to learn, adapt, and change
Yeah.
in order to continue to be on top of the game. So the proverbial saying that you can learn something from anyone, okay?
Yeah.
Because at that point, you could have been doing something totally different that has been done before. That's why you were putting up those numbers.
Yeah,
and
but
you caught his attention.
I'm his direct competitor.
Right.
So this is a power game. Now I'm going to say, hey, can you believe he asked me for advice?
You can say all you want.
Well, what happens is that was lazy. He could have gone and seen other ways to learn maybe what I was doing by seeing what I was doing instead of coming to me and asking for advice.
Okay, well, look.
Well, I'm just talking about power.
Right.
Because it made him look less powerful.
In your eyes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I disagree with you. Look,
That-
your
that's
opinion
fi-
is
that's-
your opinion, and there's no right or wrong on that. However, the Bible says, ask and you shall receive.
But you think
You're
a
a young
competitor,
rookie. Why shouldn't I ask you?
and you think I'm going to give you the answer? You're my
Maybe.
direct competitor?
Well, I'll tell you what, most likely not. But
Yeah.
you may reveal something inadvertently,
Yeah.
okay?
To me, it was in that
I hear you.
situation laziness,
Okay.
because what I did was study them, but I never asked them. There were some that were not my direct competitor, and sure, I called and asked for advice, and I asked for advice from some people, but I would study what they would do from afar. That's what I was doing,
Okay.
and then I realized, hey,
Well, that's
this
powerful.
ready.
So the one of the things that the law says is that contempt is a dish that is best served cold and without feeling. Okay?
Yeah.
It's powerful. I mean, just think about it. And contempt is for someone that you don't feel that they deserve your attention, or that they're worthy of,
You're superior.
Yeah. So contempt is a dish that is best served cold and without feelings. And so if you can't just pay attention to everything that's going on either. That's petty. You must move on. So I think that the law is very powerful. I really truly do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that Robert Greene talks about is also it's a good tool to be able to ignore because of all the energy and the time it takes for you to address something.
Yeah.
Not every mistake that somebody makes we need to correct. I have in the past felt the need to correct somebody's mistake, and when I think, why did I really do that, I think maybe it was just for my own ego. Like,
Okay.
that was a petty thing, let's say. I didn't necessarily need to correct that. So sometimes I'll hear things that are incorrect and I just let them go.
Okay.
But again, this has to do with with power. And if you want to get caught up in some little argument or whatever over something silly, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not.
Probably not, though.
Probably not, because it takes you off of your track.
Yeah, off your game.
And that's one thing that you have brought up, that, and Robert Greene says this actually, that when you, what was it, when it's like a partnership? How did he say it?
When you pay attention
Or
to
address?
petty things and you get involved in the conversation, now you become like a partner to that person.
Yeah.
And you give it energy, and that issue grows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you now are reacting, you're responding to something somebody else says. So they have control.
Right.
They have control over
Well,
it.
you just brought them into the game. You just opened the door.
You allowed
just
them.
walked in the
right.
room.
You gave them the control.
Right.
You could say something that is untrue. It's, and it's my Sensei Bill. Martial arts would say, hey, if you're at a bar and somebody says something about your mom, one of two things: either it's true or it's not true. If it's true, why are you gonna fight with the guy? It's true what he's saying about your mom. And if it's not true, then who cares? And that's the thing. If it's not true, who cares? And that's the move here. Robert Greene saying, don't even get involved with it. It's gonna take your energy, your time. Who knows what it could do? It could take.
I agree with you 100%. No doubt about it. I'm here to tell you that it takes a lot of energy not to interject. Because that happened to us recently, where somebody said something that supposedly I said years ago.
Yeah.
And the words that they use are not even in my vocabulary. So this was a totally false statement. And it was said in a group.
Created this they conjured up some story about you that I thought was funny.
And let me tell you, Mike,
It bothered you.
Oh,
Yeah.
right there and then. And if you would have looked at me, maybe my facial, maybe there would have been some. I tried not to react to that.
Yeah.
And I chose not to, get pulled into that. But let me tell you, it took every piece of energy from every cell in my body, because it's difficult when somebody's saying something about you that you had met and it's not true.
You wanted to set the record straight.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to correct it. I mean, we were 10 people in the room.
Now, why didn't you?
The reason I didn't is because the source, the person that was saying this, I don't have too much respect for that particular person over the years. So the source that it came from
Didn't
did
even
not merit
That's what he's talking about.
the confrontation.
That's what he's talking about. By ignoring people, you cancel them out. That's one of the quotes that Robert Greene is saying.
It's powerful.
Yeah. That's, I think, what you did. And I think in that room, since I was there as well, people noticed that this person was just spewing a lot of nonsense. And
Oh, yeah? Okay.
yeah, I mean, people who are paying attention. There are some people that I'll walk out of an interaction and I'll be like, man, that person's full of hot air, that full of,
Yeah, they can't.
among other things, hot air. And the other person that I'm with, or the other, is like, really? I didn't think that, I didn't know that. They didn't pick up, let's say, what my thoughts were, that this person. And so when I'm around people like that, I try to get out of that conversation as fast as possible. You've seen me in some instances where you're like, you didn't really want to talk to that person. I think that we can learn from everyone. I do. But I also think that, where do you want to spend your time and energy? And
Well, let me just say, sometimes I think you're brutal. Your brutal honesty is, woo.
well, I'll tell you this.
People can tell, okay?
Here's what the way that I calculate this.
Okay.
Okay. This is the way that
I'm all ears.
this is what I had to go through, because I spent a lot of time being nice in business, trying to sell. I was in sales. A lot of time being nice, just being taken for my time. And the other person, I would be like, oh, all this time, and they wasted my time. But I allowed it to happen. So then I changed my mindset and I said this: if the other person doesn't respect their own time, how are they going to respect mine?
Wow.
And then I even changed it even more. The next level was, this person now, for wasting my time, is being rude. And somebody who's being rude to me, I don't have to address them in the nicest way. I can end this rudely if I have to. I'm going to try to cut it nicely. But because they've stepped on the rude line, you address with the same force. That was the second evolution of it. Because people would waste your time.
For sure.
And then eventually you have to figure out, like, hey, I'm not getting paid hourly. I'm not getting paid a salary. So I can't afford to waste my time. And now you're being rude. I wouldn't tell them that, but that's what I felt. I genuinely felt they were being rude. They were imposing on my family time with friends, time that I wanted to do reading of Robert Greene, whatever, Now you're being rude.
You remind me, there were a couple of customers. They were elderly, and they would call the agency just to talk. And they would say, can you look at my policy? Because I don't know if I'm going to sell this car or not. My daughter came and we had a barbecue and she was telling me about her life in college and this and that. But they're older. They don't have someone.
Pass it to a staff member.
Yeah. And I remember staying longer than I wanted to, just because I thought that, they're just talking. And
yeah.
You don't want to pass it to a staff member because they may not have the tools to be able to cut that.
Oh,
So you cut it yourself.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, Mr. Jones, I got to take this other line. It's line 3, you're on 2. That line's been blinking for a while. It's a customer. I don't want to lose him. Let's resume this conversation at another time. It was very great hearing from your daughter and coming from college and the barbecue and all of that. Your policy's fine.
You had to cut it, yeah.
Yeah, you have to at some point.
But you did it in a nice way. It doesn't have to be done in a rude fashion or anything like that.
But I wasn't as smooth as I came across maybe right now.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it took time to grow into that. Maybe because I'm older now, and I realize that some older folk really need someone to talk to. I'm more compassionate about it.
Yeah.
Okay? I lost my mom, in the process of time. I lost my dad. So, a lot of these are power moves. And some of these moves are ruthless, When you apply these moves, it also depends where you are in your life,
Yeah.
How old you are, how content you are with your life. We had a mechanical difficulty or technical difficulty on the previous one. So this is our second take on the law. And so when I was reviewing it again, it applied it to social media. And it said, look, social media, it's so prevalent today that envy is paramount. And it is because of comparison, because we compare ourselves to someone that we want to live the life they have, because supposedly on social media, they're looking really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And what the explanation on the law was saying, look, ignore it. Don't fall into that trap, because you really, truly do not know that life is like that to begin with. And even if it was, envy is going to lead you to a very dark place.
Yeah.
So treat it with disdain. It is a cold dish that is best served, without emotion.
Yeah.
It's contempt. So it's a very good law. I like it a lot, to be honest with you.
What do you think of this quote from the book: never show that something has affected you or that you are offended.
I think it's very right on the money.
Yeah. Yeah, if
It's
you
tough to do, Mike.
it's a poker face.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can have a poker face in instances where people are trying to check you, or maybe they're trying to get under your skin, trying to figure you out, if you can remain emotionless.
I think that, that is so difficult for me to do that because, it goes with your culture too, you know.
Yeah.
I'm Cuban, I come from the Caribbean, we're very emotional people. So how can you take a hit like that and not show emotion? In fact, there's certain instances when you go to someone and they're smiling and you say something and they go, you can see in the expression immediately
Mm-hmm.
how that potentially affected the person. So how do you have that? How do you not let something affect you in that manner?
Yeah.
The only way
Practice.
you have to wake up in the morning and realize that whatever happens in the day, you can make the best of a worst situation, I think. And let things slip off the back, become slippery like a soap or something. You got to have some kind of mental awareness of this because you will get hit here and there.
I agree. And things happen to us constantly, and something happened to me the other day that has been lingering in my head for a few days.
Oh, okay.
So even though we practice the laws, we study the laws, we really are passionate about them, we haven't perfected them.
No.
I haven't perfected them.
Well, we're
Yeah.
human, so it's difficult. Keep trying.
Yeah, but it's that pursuit for not perfection, but the pursuit for improvement.
Yes.
And we have improved because there's instances that you can look back and you can be like, I handle that better now. Yeah, half of what people do is try to get your attention. And so this is going against it. So what he says, the opposite, right? If not giving attention to something makes you feel, gives you more of a perception of your superior, giving attention does the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's just knowing how to handle it.
Yeah. I look at the source. Is one of the things, one of my tricks or one of my hacks. Who is saying what they're saying? Who is that person? And how is that person standing? Because, you want to be non-judgmental, right? But the truth is that we hold people to a certain standard. We have people, and so the person that's saying something, is it worth, getting entangled into a battle?
Most of the time, the answer is no.
Most of the times not. And a lot of times, whatever it is that was happening, 3 months from that day, that's another thing I do in my mind. Will this be important 3 months from now? 2 months from now? A year from now? And almost always the answer is no. It's no.
Yeah.
Because life continues to change and evolve, and what was is the nature of life.
Yeah.
Business continues to evolve.
It becomes irrelevant.
Irrelevant, exactly. Good. That's a good word. It becomes irrelevant to a great deal.
Yeah.
But it's a great law.
Absolutely.
Law 36. Disdain the things that you can't have. Wow. Very cool.
Nice. Ready?
Yeah.
We'll close it up. Thank you.
Thank you.